You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel. Keith Engle.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Welcome, everybody. Let me get back here and get this music turned off. Guys, welcome. Great to have you with us. Welcome to TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. We're flying blind tonight because we've had about a 13-hour day at real jobs, and we snuck into the professional streaming sports show on National Streaming Sports here for a half an hour, and it's been an ugly day. But we're going to try to get through the show and give you some pertinent information. We'll have some good conversation. Want to welcome everybody watching tonight on Facebook, YouTube, our TGI Sports Talk platforms. We're on Roku. You hear music yet, right? We're on Roku, obviously, the National Streaming Sports Roku channel, brought to you in part by SeatGeeks that you saw. You can scan the code up here and download the app, and you'll be helping out National Streaming Sports and potentially this show as well. It's a good sponsor. I've used SeatGeeks myself, and it's a good tool. Also, a quick shout out to Thumbs Up DDH. Let's give you that before I forget. Ralph Williams, we'll give a shout out to him at RW Media. Specifically, he does some great stuff in Pittsburgh there. Specifically, the Sports Corner that he does every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern with Smoking Jim Frazier. We'll give a quick shout out to John Gonzalez over there at the Sports Authorities, Flo and the gang at Bottom Line Sports, Ken Krause at Golf Buds Sports of All Sorts, and who else am I missing? JB, we'll give JB a shout out tonight over at Back It Up Binge Podcast at YouTube, and who am I missing? Let's Talk Sports, where Flo's Bottom Line Sports is broadcast. So all of you guys and all the groups that allow us to share. Been tremendous, guys. We had like 5,000 views for the Sunday Streamer Conference just this week. Unbelievable. Thank you so much. And to everybody that comes in and contributes, they're here to see you guys as well. And hopefully you're ready to contribute tonight, because I am kind of flying by the seat of my pants tonight. So anyway, we do have a number one, Oregon, who beats Ohio State last week. Wait a minute. Mine's not right. Hold on. Sorry. Oregon did, as we said, did not move. Sorry, they didn't lose to Ohio State last week or beat Ohio State last week. That was the week before. Oregon does move into first place after Texas loses to Georgia. Georgia moves up into second, which is what I was actually predicting here. Let's see how close I was, by the way. Where did damn it. I just had I had my notes from there. It is. My notes from Sunday. I predicted Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, Miami. I was right for the first six. Then I had called LSU, who's number 8, Tennessee's 7. I had Tennessee at 10. Clemson and Iowa State. Some big movers and shakers this week, guys. Alabama drops all the way to 15 after losing again to Tennessee. I had Tennessee this week myself. So a lot of big games coming up this weekend. We'll look at last week's surprises. We'll talk about maybe some fake injury news in the NCAA. Is anybody going to do anything about that? Came up in our chat the other day. But check out the SeatGeek app, and I'm going to go back to my logo up there for a little bit. Anyway, let's see who's with us right now before we dive into some stuff. We'll look at the conferences. We'll do lots of stuff. Hello, Danny Fuller. Danny Fuller was starting rumors about myself over on the the professional streaming sports show. I got the name right, Mac. I hope you checked that out. Danny and I going head to head. It's a college football show, but Danny and I start going head to head Friday night. Dodgers, Yankees. Keith will be on a cruise ship. I'm going to have to stay in a bar till midnight every night to watch the damn thing, but we'll manage. Or on my cell phone in the room. I'm old, telling you. James Martin, the J Train. We got to use the proper names here, I guess. Also from National Streaming Sports, just left James. Keith was in a movie prop on the set of the sequel to Spies Like Us. That's awesome. That's an awesome extra reference, though. Spies Like Us, classic 80s comedy. They use the term loosely. It was when Chevy Chase was kind of funny still. Hydra needles from Keith. See, Danny's going to start the rumors here. I was joking. I was making a very funny joke about heroin. Said nobody ever. Anyway, Chris F. Gray's with us from above the border, north of the border. By the way, we got a bunch of new hires starting at work. Our main corporate office is in Montreal. All their laptops are stuck at the border for the last 10 days, by the way. What's going on? I told them to ship them to south of the border. You can get them in easy. The southern border, I should say. Who will derail the juggernaut freight train from Georgia? Well, Alabama already did. So I don't think I want to get into, who can derail them. Because if I look at their schedule, Chris, the SEC, by the way, is wide open. They still got losable games to Ole Miss. They're on the road. Ole Miss is probably going to be angry. Do not be shocked. Lane Kiffin's still looking for his first signature win. But I wouldn't be shocked if they lose. They're going to win easy against Florida this week at home. It's the greatest world games in Gainesville, right? I'm assuming. The world's greatest outdoor cocktail party. I don't think we can call it that anymore. I believe somebody was offended by that. They could certainly lose to Tennessee. And that's probably it. They won't lose the whatever trophy they play for against Georgia Tech. They will not lose. But they got two losable games yet, Chris. Plus the SEC championship game. Georgia's getting in the playoff. There's no doubt about that. And we'll talk about the latest, what the playoff would look like today, if you will. Got to make some leaps there, but we'll do that. Hello, Patrick Bernard. How are you? Good to have you with us tonight. Haven't seen you in a few weeks, I think, but we're glad to have you with us tonight, Patrick. Feel free to share anything you have. Good day to CA. Good to have you with us wherever you are in the country today. I know CA's from the Southwest most of the time. Not sure if CA's a Texas fan, but A&M's trending up and Texas is trending down. Show us the tattoo. These guys are posted. I can't keep up with the chat. These guys are so busy in the chat, and I got a job. I don't have time. Some days I do. Not lately. Good grief. I don't have time to even check out the chat. I did make one quick comment, I think, today. It's been a little bit of a rough go. So no tattoos, only track marks. LSU. Listen, LSU. James is LSU. We'll jump into this real quick. Let's look at the where's my standings? Come on. Yeah, here we go. Whoops. Right now, LSU and A&M are, I guess you could say, in control of the Southeast Conference. Texas A&M 4-0 in conference. LSU 3-0. Both of them 6-1 overall. LSU's loss to USC doesn't look so good right now. I'm going to say, though, James, that will hurt them ranking-wise. So, again, it's not a team that could maybe afford a second loss and get in. And we're going to have two lost teams get in the playoff, definitely. Maybe as many as 6. I don't know. I got into an argument with who did I get into an argument with? A guy, we were out watching a Patriot game Sunday, and this guy he's just I'm sorry. The word starts with a D. It ends with a K. And I tried to ignore him all day. And he started talking about the college football playoff and how no two-team playoffs, two lost teams, I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that, would get in. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's going to be no undefeated teams likely when we get done. You're going to have 2 lost teams from the SEC that are going to get in. Oh, that's what we talked about. I'm sorry. I was talking about 2 lost teams. He was talking about the SEC wouldn't get more than 3 teams. They'd be lucky. Sorry. They'd be lucky to get 3 teams in. Are you kidding me? Right now, LSU has got 5 teams in. Am I wrong? I'll get to your comments in a second. Let me just see this. And you guys can put up whatever comments you want. This guy was such a knucklehead. I was warned about him, and they didn't do him justice, actually. Who's in now? Oregon. There's your 4 buys. Oregon. We're going to give Georgia. Again, we're making assumptions that they win their conference. I'm not convinced Oregon's going to beat Ohio State again. Sake of argument, I'll say Oregon. Oregon, Georgia, Miami, although I think that'll be Clemson. All right, let me do this a different way. I say Ohio State wins the Big Ten. Ohio State. I'll give you Georgia for now. Clemson, I think, wins the ACC. I think they beat Miami. And we know I'm a Miami fan. Team's looking to lose. Just saying. Who's that? That gives me 3. And then we've got Iowa State or BYU. All right, now I'm gonna call that for Iowa State. If I use the AP rankings, that's our 4 bye teams. And then, of course, you got your group of 5 automatic qualifier, who, by the way, if Boise State wins out, the Big 12 or the ACC really slips. Boise State could get the bye. In any event, they got that 5th automatic bid. Then you've got Penn State. You've got Oregon. You've got Texas. You've got Tennessee. You got LSU. You got Miami, maybe. No guarantee on 2 spots for the ACC or the Big 12. Big 12's probably got a better shot than the ACC right now. That's 11. Then it comes down to maybe you're going to have, I think I talked about this Sunday, you're going to have the second place finisher in the Big 12. The second place finisher, I'll go those last 2 spots, drop Miami out. You're going to have Miami. You're going to have Iowa State or BYU, Notre Dame, Indiana, A&M, Alabama, all in the hunt for that 11 and 12 spots. Good stuff. I say hire Chris F. Grave. He can hop, skip, and jump to Montreal. There you go. But the problem is getting back. We can't get them. They're sitting at the border. This happens every few years when we have to get stuff down to the States. I had to get a new laptop for work. I don't know, 4 or 5. Time flies. I don't know. 6 months ago, maybe it was a year ago. I don't remember. It took 2 days. It was here. So, Michael Gott from the UK. How are you, Michael? Good to have you with us. I am doing very well. Hope the same for you, Michael. Just popping in to say hello from over the pond. I'm checking back out quickly. Hope you're still here then. Just after midnight here. Need some shut-eye. May catch you Sunday. Good point to bring up. Again, I hope you're still here, Michael. And I see Patrick got a couple of comments. We'll get there in a second. Talking about Sunday. So Friday, we're leaving on vacation. Sometime Friday afternoon, we'll try to do the MLB update from the cruise ship. We'll get it hopefully before 3 o'clock so we can get it in the Roku slot. I'll probably do it not at 3 o'clock. It'll probably be mid-afternoon probably. Sunday, we'll do the stream of consciousness, hopefully right at 8:30. Whether we go 2 hours will be debatable. My wife will probably shoot me if I spend 2.5 hours doing shows on the cruise ship. But we're there for 11 days, guys. It's not that big a deal. And then we'll do this show at some point next Wednesday from the cruise ship, and it won't be at 7, but we'll do it at some point. I'll try to give you guys a heads up as much as I can. Then we'll do the same thing with the MLB update on Friday, and the same thing with the Stream of Consciousness on the following Sunday. So lots of time on the cruise ship, lots of trying to get some podcasts in while we're there. Patrick, Penn State heading to Wisconsin. We'll then head home to get stomped by Ohio State. Well, James Franklin doesn't beat Ohio State. He won't lose to Michigan this year because they don't play him. Plus, Michigan, I still think, will finish out of the top 25. What's Penn State's chances? So, again, they have Nebraska this week, Patrick. I got you're right. I'm on the wrong team. I'm on Ohio State. Sorry. My apologies, Patrick, for doubting you. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell's team, hanging in there. Not great, not bad. Hanging in there. That'll be an interesting. Camp Randall's not an easy place to play. Penn State I think Penn State gets a tussle in that game. We'll do our picks, by the way, and we'll check the standings before we check out. And you're right. They'll get throttled at home against Ohio State. Probably their only losable game, maybe Washington. They got Washington at home. They should win. But that's going to leave them with a couple of losses. And how many teams are the Big Ten going to get in? If Indiana continues to improve, do they move ahead of Penn State? Indiana's playing great football. Best team they beat was Nebraska last week, and they beat them by a ton, about 50. And Segretti said, look me up. What did he say when he got hired? Google me. I win. Well, he's winning. CFL bracket, CFL playoff bracket getting taken out. You mean college football? College football? I don't think you mean the CFL. I think they're done, right? Canadian Football League. The bracket is going to be tight. The bracket's going to be really tight at the back. And again, all the naysayers who say college football did need 12 teams, it's going to devalue the regular season are crazy. Every week is exciting. I'm a huge opponent of all the realignment that's happened, but one thing it has done is bring us some great football matchups every week. Now, it's at the expense of some great historical rivalries and historical leagues, which is, the Pac-12 was only around for 125 years. It'll be back next year, but it won't be the same. But what's not exciting? Notre Dame's in play. Notre Dame was dead a few weeks ago. Notre Dame's right back in the hunt. Can't win with 2 losses, Kenny. They can't get in the playoff. They just can't. Army, Navy, both in play for the group of 5 slot. You don't get more exciting than this. And by the way, Navy and Notre Dame play this week at, I believe, MetLife, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see that when we go through the games a little bit. There's some big games this weekend. LSU at A&M, James, big game on the road. College Station, tough place to win. Will LSU and Coach Kelly be able to keep this going? Boise State, big league matchup against UNLV, who's still in contention for that group of 5 spot. They're not eliminated by any means. I said Notre Dame and Navy. Alabama gets Missouri at home. Can't read my writing. Illinois at Oregon. Illinois played some pretty good football. Good defensive team. Can they score enough points to keep up with Oregon? I'm doubtful. And Texas trying to rebound against the surprising Commodores of Vanderbilt, number 25 in the rankings this week. Patrick says work is overrated. You bet your ass it is. See how much longer it lasts. Kenny Gifford, track marks live on the southern edge. A lot of track marks go down here. Track marks, hum Mets of the past, definitely not Stankies. You mean Arnold. Yeah, I did mean Arnold. Indiana wins the Big Ten. Ohio choker state finished third. Again, we can say what we want about Ohio State. They're better than Penn State. I have my doubts at Indiana. Indiana's going to go into, let's take a look at Indiana's schedule, shall we? They're going to go into Ohio State here in I believe November 23rd. Let me see if I'm right. Yep. And before that, they've got Washington at home, should be a victory. At Michigan State, should be a victory. At home against Michigan, huge game. Michigan, nowhere near the team that they were last year. I don't think they're even anywhere near being a really good football team. I think they finish out of the top 25 for the year. I think Indiana goes into Ohio State undefeated and in position. I don't think they can win at Ohio State, though, Kenny. And if they lose, they're going to finish third, by the way, because I don't think Ohio State will lose again. And then they got Purdue. So that would leave them with one loss in the league and one loss overall. And I think it's entirely possible. If they don't stumble, they need to be careful in this game with Washington, who's sneaky good from time to time. And careful in that game with Michigan, but both of those games are at home. Don't think they can lose on the road to Michigan State. They're not going to lose to Purdue. Now, Ohio State, why am I not getting their schedule when I do that? That's very weird. I see what's happening here. I'm doing it the wrong way. Anyway, I don't think, if they finish with one loss in the conference, each of them, well, Ohio State, if they beat Indiana, they're going to go to the championship game. So the only way your prediction comes true here, Kenny, is if Indiana beats Ohio State on the road. Tall task, even for a team you think is a choker. They've been to the playoff. They haven't won a national championship, but you got to be careful. Listen, I love Notre Dame. The story of Notre Dame. I'm not necessarily a Notre Dame fan, but I always root for Notre Dame because college football is better when Notre Dame is good. As a Notre Dame fan, you got to be a little careful about calling a team chokers when your team has won national championship in nearly 40 years. 36 to be exact. Ohio State's won national championships in that period of time. They've been to more championship games. They've been to more playoffs. So again, just be careful. Ohio State's a lot of things. They're not the best program in the country, but they're a really good football program. And so is Notre Dame, by the way. I'm not trying to knock Notre Dame. I'm only giving you a comparison. And I know that Kenny is just he's predisposed to knock anything to do with Ohio State. Just again, we all have that team. Clemson. Yeah, I am on drugs. I came out on your show. Clemson's playing some of the best football in the country. Clemson's 6-1. They're back in the top 10. They're 9th. And by the way, they've owned Miami for about 2 decades. As a Miami fan, I do not see Miami beating Clemson on a neutral field as we talk today. That could change in the next 5 weeks, by the way. You could bring this tape out, but I'm telling you, as we speak today, Miami's a team looking for a loss. And they continue week after week to play like they're looking for a loss. Happy birthday to Buck Jones. He would have been 136 today. That would have been some kind of record, probably, Chris. Came out of Haskell Indian University, established in 1884. School has produced Orland Crow and Alvaro Davis. I gotta admit, I do not know either one of those guys. Where is Haskell Indian University? Is it up north or is it here in the States? CA. We're just yesterday back ahead of schedule since Red River Shootout. We know how that ended. It's been a doozy, of course, nowadays. A&M over about anybody other than Texas. Hook 'em. Listen, I think Texas is still one of the best teams in the country. They dropped the fifth, which about where I expected them to be. They're going to beat Vanderbilt on the road this week. Vandy's better than they've been in a while. Texas isn't losing another game. They'll until Texas A&M. Texas A&M on the 30th of November could be a very interesting, important game. Now, a lot of these games leading up to the championship games may be more important than the championship games themselves. That part of the playoff is true. Don't care about that, though. I don't care about the league championship games not being as meaningful as they were. I really don't. They'll still have meaning because they're going to play a part in the buys and whatnot. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten are getting both of the teams that's playing that championship game are getting in the playoff. There's no doubt about it. There'll be some, I think, some probably, we'll have to see where the rankings are. We'll have the first, might be while I'm gone, we'll have the first college football playoff rankings. I believe they're, if I'm not mistaken, I think they might be next Tuesday, might be the first rankings. I didn't pull it up. If somebody wants to pull it up for me, that's great. I believe the first rankings come out on the 31st, which will give us something important to talk about while we're cruising. Sorry, I got distracted by a work message. Where was I? Some of the national or the conference championship games that could be important are the Big 12 and the ACC. There's really no guarantee that any second place team, especially in the ACC, is going to get a spot in the playoff. So again, some of these championship games might be meaningless other than the buys, which is that meaningless? I'm not sure it is. Is the Indiana win versus Nebraska fluke? Or listen, Indiana has not been just winning games; they've been winning games big. Now they haven't played the best competition, James. But you and I were messaged a few times near the end of this game, or maybe just after it was over. I didn't see a lot of it. I don't know what I was doing Saturday. That something had me distracted. But this is a team, and again, I know UCLA is not a great team, right? But they played at UCLA and beat them by almost 30. They throttled Maryland. They throttled Northwestern. They throttled Nebraska. I think this Washington game will be a truer test because it's at home. I think Washington, and I know I said Nebraska was back. I know I didn't say Nebraska was competing for a national championship. I said they were relevant. I do think they're relevant. More relevant than they've been in a dozen years since they left the Big 12. But this team's real test is going to come against Michigan at home, even though Michigan's on a downer, and against Ohio State. We're going to find out those 2 weeks, I think, James, obviously. Indiana, though, could lose to Ohio State close, or maybe even a couple of touchdowns and still find their way into the playoff. It's possible. It's a good football team. Segretti is right. He wins everywhere he goes. He took a James Madison team just into FBS 1. And if it wasn't for archaic, and they might have got a bowl bid actually after all was said and done, because they didn't have enough teams to take last year. But I think they had one loss last year at James Madison. What was my takeaway experience from watching Army versus Navy? Well, we haven't seen it yet this year, but Army-Navy is, to me, one of the classic matchups. I don't care. The records don't matter in that matchup. Army-Navy this year is a little bit different because both teams are really good, relatively speaking. Nobody's saying they're Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, LSU. It's going to be an interesting test for both Notre Dame and Navy this week. And Notre Dame's going to get Army as well. But watching Army-Navy to me is a different experience because these are kids that aren't going on to play professional football. They're going on to serve their country. The seniors in those games may be going somewhere to put their lives on the line, especially the way the world is right now. Shortly thereafter. And it's just a special experience. And this year, theoretically, it's still absolutely possible that we get 2 Army-Navy games. The Army-Navy game this year, the standard game, is not a league game, even though they're both playing in the American Football Conference. They were not scheduled as part of the league competition. Could become a problem for that standalone Army-Navy game in the future when they are scheduled because the championship games are played the week before. We'll see how they work all that out. I think Army-Navy deserves that standalone stage. You can say the games are boring if you're not to me, they're not boring. Watching these kids play, it's not boring. They're not a bunch of spoiled brats getting NIL money and, cars and whatever else. And quitting, as Rick Sherlock would like to say. Rick's not with us tonight yet anyway. And quitting on their teams when it comes to play big games. Army-Navy special. Army-Navy, again, back to what I was going to say, Army-Navy, there is the potential that they play in the AAC championship game and a week later play the Army-Navy game. And those games could have playoff impact. Nobody would have thought that before. Never would happen with a 14 playoff. I mean, if you were talking about a 14 playoff this year, I'll get back to your comments in a second, guys. So don't get crazy on me. You'd be looking at, 7 teams. 7 or 8 teams with a realistic shot, maybe at the playoff. Maybe not, because you go, I guess we could go a little deeper than that. But again, 4 teams. So a lot of those teams are going to be eliminated that are in that top 10. No chance at all once they lose again. Done. Now we're talking about all the way down to 16, 17. Let's say Pittsburgh could play themselves into competition. I mean, it's 17 or 18 teams are in the conversation for the playoff. Now, I know John DeLon, God bless him, I hope he's okay, because John hasn't been in our show the entire season, and John was a major contributor to this program, comment-wise, and he would have been alive for the Itch Award if he was on the Sunday show. But we hope John's okay because we haven't seen him at all. I hope he just got mad at me and left, and he's doing okay. So anyway, Army's a special experience. What did Linda say? Well, you could be right. I mean, but again, you are what your record says you are. They're 6-1. They lost 1 game in the very first game that nobody knows who's good and who's bad against Georgia. They looked horrible. I was writing them off. Dabo Swinney has rallied that team to win, not just win, but blow teams out. Again, not the best competition. But I will tell you, you want to talk about you talk about chokers at Ohio State. I'll tell you about the team that I root for because my family root there, and they have diplomas. My stepson did his undergrad work at Miami. So anybody who doesn't think Miami's a good academic school, you don't know what you're talking about. This is one of the best academic schools in the country. And he went on to get his doctorate later on at UNC. So please disparage the football team all you like. Don't disparage university because it's a really, really good educational university. I know for a fact. But anyway, you want to talk about choking. This team chokes. They've had great starts since I've come into the Miami sphere. Great starts like they've had this year several times under Mark Rick. And then they'd implode against a Virginia Tech, against a Clemson. at home against a Virginia. And then they get into a bowl game or a championship game against Clemson and get totally blown out of the building. So Clemson is far from done in this conversation. I mean, if you don't like teams, that's fine. To say they're trash, they're not trash. He didn't say trash. That's my word. But whatever. Texas is going to blast Vandy. I think you're right. I think Vanderbilt's bubble will burst a little bit this week, but give them credit. You don't often see Vanderbilt ranked. And Vanderbilt's already got a really good win against Alabama under their belt. They ever knock Texas off, chaos is upon us. We'll be waiting for the locusts and the frogs coming from the sea. I know who you meant, Danny. CA, there are only 4 really in play. That's not true. I mean, again, I'm talking about getting into the playoff. You're talking about for the Final Four, there's only 4 really in play. Once you get to the playoff, anything can happen. Especially once teams have a bye and they lose a little bit of momentum. So they're really in play. I'm not going to say there's only 4 teams in play. Any others will need to beat 2 of the 4. Just haven't seen that possibility. We haven't seen anything like this before, so it's hard for me to say. And again, when I say in play, I'm talking about for the playoff, not to win. I'm not telling you there's 18 teams. Well, there are. There are literally 18 teams in play for the Final Four even. Because once you get there, they got to win 2 games to get to the semis. I get it. And the 4 buys, which will likely be the teams no, it can't be. Well, first of all, CA, those 2 of those teams you mentioned will have to win 3 games to win the national championship. Or 4 games. What is it? We go from 12. What is it? I can't do math. So we start with 12. We got 4 buys. We got 8. We'll have 4 left. How's that work? That can't be right. 12. We got 4 buys. At least 8 down to 4 plus 4, right? So that brings us down to 4 again. So you got to win 1, 2 to get to the Final Four, 3 to get to the championship. You got to win 4 games to win it all. Am I right or wrong here? Is this right? 12, 8, 12, I'm sorry, 6. Yeah, sorry. 8, 4, 2, 1. So either the Bulldogs or Texas or Oregon or Ohio State, one of them has got to play 1, 2, 3, 4 games to win. They're going to be in the same position as everybody else. Those 4 teams can't get buys. That's impossible. So 4 highest ranked conference champions. So those teams they aren't getting buys into the, quarterfinals. That's not happening. I don't know. Who cares? Who cares? We talk about this all. Kenny, you go down this road with quarterbacks from Ohio State. It's irrelevant. I don't care about when I'm talking college football. I'm talking about college football players. Some of the greatest college football players in history were not good pros, including guys from Notre Dame and including guys from Ohio State. One of the best was Tim Tebow. He wasn't a good pro. Doesn't take anything away from his college accomplishments. But since you brought up the question, let's find out. Hopefully you already know the answer. You wouldn't ask. College football programs. with most NFL players all time. Shouldn't be that hard to find, right? Notre Dame. We already knew that. 525 players have gone to the NFL. Good for them. It has nothing to do with the game of college football, which is what we're talking about here on this show, right? Doesn't mean anything. Let's give you the top 10 since we're on it. I don't think this is really an important conversation for a college football conversation because it has nothing to do with how good a college football team they are. Hang on. Well, I got to get all the way down here. Number 1, Fighting Irish, 525. USC, 523. How they doing lately? Buckeyes, 485. So they're 40 players behind them over 100 years. That's like a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's not like 500 to 100, Kenny. Good evening, Dave Guyette. Syracuse. Big game for Syracuse this week. Who they got? Doesn't have Syracuse have they got a Friday nighter. Oh, they got Pittsburgh Thursday night. Pittsburgh hosts Syracuse. Kyle McCord. Syracuse 5-1, still in play in the ACC. This could be an upset. Watch it. Could be an upset. You said the Giants would be a playoff team. That's when I was doing drugs. We already talked about that. So it's okay to be off. LOL. Go Dodgers. U.S. Army versus Navy is always full of winners and no losers. Thank you, Danny. That's well said. Excellent point. The players are not based on your rank. That's well, that part's true. It's not 6. 12 will play 5. I'm not sure what you're saying here. I have no idea, which tells me then play 1-1. I don't know what that means. 12 will play 5 because only 4 teams get a bye. 12 plays 5 and so on. And then I don't believe they re-rank. I think there'll be a bracket, and I don't believe they'll be re-ranking them once they get to the next round. Pretty sure this is. I know this is college football, but it's a sports show. First, rest in peace for. That's a great point. I will say that. Thank you for bringing it up. I didn't even know it until I caught your guys' chat today. Again, I've been so busy. I haven't seen really hardly any news or any sports news. I haven't seen anything. I did notice in your chat you said that. And yes, rest in peace, Fernando Valenzuela passed away today. I saw some pictures of him. And we'll talk more about Fernando on the Major League Baseball update Friday. I'm sure Sunday we'll get some more in about him, Danny. But I agree 100%. We want to wish, send our best wishes to Fernando's family and friends. And listen, he may not have been one of the best pitchers in the history of baseball, but Fernando Mania was an important part of the baseball landscape in a very tough season. 1981 came up in late 80. We're not going to go on this very long. We'll do more of this on Friday in the MLB update, but came up late in 80 and was really good out of the bullpen. And in 81, Fernando Mania took over. We had a strike. And thank God for Fernando Mania because baseball was in a lot of trouble. He had some very good years. Probably threw the ball too much for that time. Again, I talk a lot about how pitchers don't throw enough today. And Fernando, like, who knows how old he was? I mean, do I think he was 19 years old when he got here? I'm not quite sure. So who knows how many pitches he'd thrown before he got here? But yes, Danny, rest in peace to Fernando. A very important part of baseball history and Americana in general, if you will, in my mind. No, not 2 get buys. 2 don't. Oh, well, your guys. Okay. However, it doesn't matter. The 8 others will still need to beat 2 of the 4, which I don't see happening. Well, I agree. Look at, again, there will be favorites and there will be underdogs like there is everywhere else. So, but once you get there, all 12 teams have an equal chance to get to the Final Four. Maybe the 4 teams with a bye have a little bit better chance because they don't have to play an extra game. I'm just saying, my original comment, CA, was only about how many teams were alive for a playoff spot. And I will tell you, in sports today, the college football landscape we've watched already, we've seen all kinds of crazy stuff happen this year. And you're going to see more. So don't be shocked when you see an Indiana or a Boise State, somebody crazy, make their way to the Final Four. And they will have earned their way there. I was talking about John DeLon before. This is not a participation trophy tournament. No. Not in any way, shape, or form. These teams are going to have all earned their way there. Now, again, I prefer we have the format I preferred. It's not my format. So, Basement Bob, don't be getting out your lawyer's number to try to sue me again. This is not my playoff format. It's one I prefer. 16 teams, all 10 champions get in. All 10 league champions get in, 6 at-larges. Now I got a real championship tournament. And again, you may very well be right. Those 4 teams you think are the favorites to get in. I will probably, if you told me I could take those 4 teams or the field, I would take the field. Because I doubt, I'm saying it couldn't happen. The odds are pretty good. There'll be a team from outside of that 4 you mentioned that have a chance to that will get in. Not have a chance, will get in. Because you don't mention, I think you mentioned the Horns. I mean, you don't mention Tennessee. You don't mention LSU or A&M. You don't mention Notre Dame. I talk up Notre Dame's Kenny's own Notre Dame team. I don't talk them down at all. And I do have a wager on them. It's not just because I have a wager on them. I like it when Notre Dame's good because I'm a college football fan. More than I'm a Miami Hurricane fan. I've been a Syracuse fan over the years. I root for good stories. I'm a college football fan. That's why college football is so much better than pro football. I'm a Patriot fan and nothing else in the NFL. You'll never see me root for another team. I'll have money on a team I might root for them. I follow my money. College football is wall-to-wall energy and fun. The NFL, not so much. So anyway, I'm not really docking your point, but CA. Let's look at the polling while you guys put some more comments up for me. Oregon goes up 1, as I said, to number 1. Georgia 2, Penn State 3, Ohio State 4. Texas with a big drop after their loss. Not a big drop. You drop from 1 to 5. Miami stays right at 6. Tennessee's at 7. They jump 4 spots from 11, put themselves back in the playoff picture. They'd be in if we talked about it today. LSU stays at 8. Clemson up to number 9. Iowa State drops after a victory to 10. BYU up 2 spots to 11. Also on the cusp of a playoff. Notre Dame stays right at number 12. BYU went by them. Not terribly surprised there. BYU had a close game against Oklahoma State. Not the best Oklahoma State team last year either, or last week. Indiana jumps up 3 to 13. Texas A&M stays at 14. Very quietly moving up these standings, by the way, guys. Alabama, the big loser this week, dropping 8. Kansas State up 1 to 16. Don't count them out of the Big 12 yet. Boise State falls 2 spots, not playing last week. They'll got a big game against Vegas this week. Ole Miss stays flat at 18. They probably played their way out of the playoff. Pittsburgh 6-0. Just saying. Big game against Syracuse. Illinois up 2 after beating Michigan, as I said they would. Up 2 spots to 21. Missouri falls 2 with a lackluster performance last week. SMU 6-1 right now, still in the ACC hunt as well. Army and Navy stay at 23, and Navy moves up to 24. Great stories, both undefeated. And Vanderbilt ranked for the first time in I don't know how long, dropping out Michigan, who I think will finish out of the top 25. Just outside here, not very many other teams getting votes, by the way. Washington, Syracuse, UNLV, Dukes, South Carolina, Liberty, and Nebraska, the only other teams getting votes. Interesting. Let's look at the conference standing, shall we? We already talked about the SEC. I'm going to go back to the top. The American, you still got Army and Navy sitting right at the top, undefeated. Army with 2 games in hand are 6-0 already. They're only going to have a couple more home games, or a couple, 2 more. Sorry, I think 4 more league games. The others have 6 or 7. Navy's at 4-0. Tulane, don't count them out. 3-0. And then at 1 loss, you've got Memphis, North Texas, and Charlotte. The ACC, Clemson, everybody's punching bag, 5-0 in the conference, 6-1 overall. Their only loss to the juggernaut that everybody talks about, Georgia. Miami, looking for a loss, but they've still won 7 games in a row. They're 7-0, 3-0 in the conference. SMU 3-0, 6-1 overall. Pittsburgh undefeated, 2-0 in the conference. Only 2. They got a lot of conference games left. Duke and the 1-loss teams are Duke, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. Can't count any of those teams out of that ACC race to get to 1 or 2 to be in a. Remember, there are no more divisions in these conferences, which really leaves somebody stealing a bid out in the cold. That's not going to happen. You're not going to have in the ACC or the SEC, the top team in the country or the top team in a conference playing, the 6th best one because they won a weak division. That's never going to happen again. Or Big 10, for that matter. Or the Big 12. The Big 12 with BYU and Iowa State, both at 4-0, both undefeated 7-0. I do think both these teams will stumble somewhere in conference, which keeps Kansas State alive. Theoretically, so are Texas Tech and Cincinnati and Colorado with 1 loss in conference. I'm not buying any of these teams. I'm selling them all. I think this is a 3-team race. I really do. I think the American Conference is probably a 4-team race between Army, Navy, Tulane, Memphis, and Texas, North Texas. The Big 12, the ACC is probably more wide open than anybody. Clemson, Miami. I think SMU I'm selling. Pittsburgh I might buy for now. That's 3 teams. I'm going to include Syracuse in this. I think it's a 4-team race in the ACC. Big 12, we already talked about. Big 10, Indiana sits at the top, as James pointed out earlier. 4-0. Oregon, 4-0, tied with them. Penn State also undefeated with 3 wins. None of those teams have lost a game overall. I think all these teams will lose a game before we get to the playoff. Oregon's might not be until the championship game, yes, against Ohio State. I see Penn State faltering against Ohio State in the regular season. I see Oregon and Ohio State finishing in the 1 and 2 spots. But you can't count out Indiana. You can't count out Penn State. You probably can't count out Illinois. Again, we talk about Wisconsin struggling, but they're 3-1 in a conference. Luke Fickell's got this team starting to move. Not missing any comments here, am I? You guys want to sleep on me. What's this? Hold on here. What make of the LSU and A&M game this weekend? Is the loser risk not making a playoff? Yes, because any 2-team loss is going to be at risk of not getting in, especially in a conference as strong as the SEC. I mean, the loser there brings, the loser there is going to fall behind Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. Puts themselves with Alabama on the bubble. They're definitely on the bubble. So are they out? No, but they're certainly on the bubble. Where am I? So there's the Big 10 or the Big 18, whichever you want to say. Conference USA, Liberty, again, getting votes, 1 vote for the top 25 this week. This is not going to be a conference. It's going to compete, I don't think, for anything. Liberty and Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State all in play here. Independence, there's only 3 left, and Notre Dame by far the best one there, 6-1. UConn loses last week, a game they probably should have won. They're 4-3, and UMass, one of the worst teams ever to play college football. The MAC conference, again, no danger to the group of 5 here. We'll talk a little more group of 5 here in a second. You got Western Michigan, Miami, Buffalo, Toledo, who's a really good football team, and the prohibitive favorite here is in 4th place right now, or tied for 2nd, however you want to look at it. And probably still in play, but nothing going to come out of there. Mountain West, still kind of interesting. UNLV undefeated. They do have 1 loss to Syracuse. Boise State, 17th in the country, 2-0. Colorado State, 2-0. San Diego State, 2-0. And you got a bunch of teams with 1 loss. San Jose State, Coach Ken taking over there, as we know. Fresno and New Mexico. New Mexico is much better than we thought they'd be, even though they're 3-4. I thought this would be one of the worst teams in the country. To me, this is Vegas, Boise State, and maybe Colorado State trying to get to their conference championship game. Again, no guarantee. Best thing that happens to Army, Navy, Tulane, any of the other group of 5 contenders is that Boise loses to UNLV, or loses, maybe even better, gets to the championship game and loses of the Mountain West and puts them in. The Pac-12, both teams still tied at 0-0. The SEC we've talked about, but again, Texas A&M, LSU, undefeated. Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, Vanderbilt, all with 1 loss. That'll change. The only 2 lost teams here. Alabama's not dead, but Arkansas has got no shot. None of those other teams have it. Even Ole Miss is dead at 1-2 in my mind. Sun Belt, again, no danger of upsetting any playoff bubbles, but an interesting conference. Georgia Southern is really good. Old Dominion's good. Louisiana, as always, is good. And UL Monroe doing very well. With the coach UAB probably wishes they had, as Trent Dilfer is probably in trouble up there. Middle Tennessee, we got Tuesday night football all the time now, guys. If we look at it, I think there might be more than 1 game tonight. Don't we have CA? See what we have. Yeah, we got a couple games. Liberty is trailing Kennesaw State, by the way. Kennesaw State 0-6. First year in FBS 1. They're leading undefeated Liberty 14-7 with 6 minutes left in the second half. And Middle Tennessee is leading Jacksonville State 10-7. 5 minutes left in the first half. And yesterday, it isn't Tuesday, it's Wednesday. I haven't known what day it is, I swear, in about a month. Sam Houston is leading. Sam Houston doing very well in their first year at FBS 1, leading Florida International 10-7, and Louisiana Tech over UTEP 14-10 right now. Got big Pittsburgh and Syracuse game tomorrow. Let me do the picks. Let me do the standings for the college football pick 'em, and I'll give you my picks from there, and then we'll look at some other games as well. There was a comment. I don't know if Kenny and Kenny said he wouldn't remember. I don't know if Kenny's still with us. I wish Rick was with us. Danny was part of this conversation. We were talking about injuries, faking injuries, and whether players should be penalized, coaches should be penalized. Listen, there's no players faking injuries on their own. It's part of a game plan set up by the coaches. You need to penalize those teams. If it was me, they'd get a 25-yard penalty, right? I'd give them, or maybe 2 unsportsmanlike. Give them a 30-yard penalty. You want to stop this stuff from happening? You're not going to stop it by saying that players got to come out of the game. You're not going to stop it by fining coaches. You're not going to stop it. Hurt them in that game, and you'll stop it. Take away the advantage. If you obviously flop, you're going to get penalized 30 yards or something. Again, I'm making up a number, but don't make it 5 yards. Don't make it 10 yards. Make it really, difficult. Again, I think I'm asking for a lot here. So you can make up some comments about that if you'd like. Here's our standings right now. Our unknown ESPN generic picker is now 51-28, doing very well. 6 wins last week. 7 was the high last week. That was who got that? Kenny with 7. Rick with 7. Myself with 7. Scott Kobe back in the mix. Scott, we hope you're doing well. By the way, Scott's having some health issues, and we wish Scott nothing but the best. Great guy and a good. But this guy will give you some picks on sports you never thought about betting, and he's almost always right. He does a great job. And that were the high games for last week, or the best pickers for last week, should we say. So we got ESPN fan, whatever, at 51. The Sports Nut, who we still don't know who that is. I think it's somebody who watches the show and maybe doesn't participate. He's got 49 wins. Beamer Ball, which is Neil Bush, has 45. Yours truly has 44. Paul has 43. Rick has 42. Kenny has 35. And Scott has 27 wins, but his winning percentage is probably better than some others because he did miss, I think, 3 weeks there. So, again, we hope Scott's doing well tonight. Here's the picks in the pool. I'm going to take Indiana home. Remember, there's no points here. Indiana home against the Huskies of Washington. Again, at some point, they got to be worried about looking ahead to that Ohio State game on the 23rd of November. BYU will visit UCF. UCF's a bit of a disappointment to me at 3-4. I really thought KJ Jefferson was going to fit into Gus Malzahn's offense well. Hasn't worked out so far. Over is going to be a good bet in this game, I think. We'll see what it is when we look at the other games. But I'll take BYU on the road here. I'll ride the favorite wave. Bowling Green at Toledo. I got to take Toledo. Toledo's a good football team. Texas Tech at TCU. This one's interesting. I'm going with the home team. I'm going to buck the 60% trend on Texas Tech. Their defense is atrocious. I'll take TCU at home. UL Monroe against South Alabama. UL Monroe undefeated in conference. I will take them. I'll take the 70-point trend towards them. I got West Virginia going to Arizona. Arizona, a bit of a disappointment, and West Virginia, a bit of a disappointment. I don't think West Virginia travels well. Arizona wins this game. Penn State goes to Wisconsin. 91% on Penn State, 9 on Wisconsin. I'm going to take a flyer here, guys, and say that James Franklin puts up a stinker at Camp Randall before he ever sees Ohio State. Texas A&M, I'm going to take, again, bucking the trend just a little bit. 56% have taken LSU. I will take the Texas A&M Longhorns. I love them at home at College Station. Tough place to play when this team is good. And this team is good. Playing very good football, very quietly under the radar since they lost to Notre Dame. Michigan State and Michigan, as much as I don't like the team, I'll take Michigan here over their in-state rival. Both 4-3 right now. Could be an upset there, though. Watch out. And Colorado, I might have to change my opinion on. 5-2 right now. They got Cincinnati, also 5-2. Both with one loss in the Big 12. Cincinnati playing good football, but I'm taking Colorado and Deion at home to get to their 6th win and be bowl eligible. Big surprise that I'm there, but I'm there. A&M Lady Aggies versus Lady Longhorns now on ESPN. What is that? What is that? College basketball? Or college? Is it volleyball? What is it? I can't reach my remote. I got like Star Trek, the original series on the TV. It's what was playing. I sat down here. Oh, God. Oh, let's look at some other games of note, if we will. I'm going to go through the whole schedule today because we got some time. Not a lot of topics being kicked around, so we'll go through the schedule. I'm going to take Syracuse upset Pittsburgh. Certainly like them with the points tomorrow night in Pittsburgh. Friday night, we got a couple of good games as well with Louisville traveling to Boston College. Louisville hasn't been playing that well. I like what Bill O'Brien's doing at Boston College. A couple of disappointing games, but I like Boston College here. Home dog, 7.5. I hope I get a shot at betting that. Boise State goes to UNLV. Boise State, a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Do not discount UNLV in this game, but Boise State's really good. I'll take Boise State. Rutgers. What do you got here, CA? Volleyball. Okay. I might have a little hiccup, so I don't know. Rutgers gets to travel from East Rutherford, New Jersey, all the way to Los Angeles. That ought to be fun for a Friday night game. They'll be playing the Trojans. USC's kind of reverted to where I thought they'd be. If you remember, I predicted that you would be 5-7. They got all the way as high as number 11, and now they're 3-4, 1-4 to Big Ten. This team is not yet ready to play Big Ten football. They're not good in the trenches. You got to be good in the trenches to win in the Big Ten. Everybody throws a football. We know that. But the teams that are big and physical still control the Big Ten. Ohio State's big and physical. Washington and Oregon, I think, are better of the teams that have come in this year, are better suited for that type of football than UCLA and USC, let's say. With that said, USC should win this game. Notre Dame, 13-point favorites over Navy, both ranked. You don't often see them play as ranked opponents. I like Notre Dame to win this game. I don't think it's possible they don't cover. Notre Dame wins in a romp here the way Navy's been winning. This is very good for Navy's chances, for Notre Dame's chances as far as making the playoff. Because they need some style points, unfortunately. I don't like to see games run up against Navy. I don't know that they'll be able to run it up against Navy even. But they need to win, I think, handily to impress the voters, if you will. And they need A&M to keep winning. An A&M win over LSU would probably be bigger for Notre Dame than their win over Navy. Although Notre Dame has no room for error. They cannot lose. Again, I'll eat crow right here on this show. If they have 2 losses and they get in, I'd be shocked. Florida State, who's been terrible, travels to Miami to face off against Cam Ward. 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This defense, though, is not good. I don't like the over only because Florida State may not score any points. Nebraska goes to Ohio State after getting thrashed by Indiana last week. This is not a good spot for Matt Rule. They are 5-2, 2-2 in the Big Ten. Ohio State's going to throttle them. Indiana, 6.5-point favorite over Washington only. If this game's in the cigar box, this could be a wager this weekend. But I'll take Indiana. I'm sorry, where was I? Yeah, Indiana to win by 6.5 or more. Oklahoma, who is really, really in a tailspin. They were 4-0. I said it was a mirage then because it was a very weak 4-0. And it's showing up now. They've lost 3 straight in bad fashion. They run into an angry Ole Miss team who's not happy to probably have played their way out of the playoff here the last month. But Ole Miss is a 20-point favorite. Tough first year for Oklahoma in the SEC. Sorry, Alan Perales. Georgia Tech will go to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, a bit of a surprise. They're a 10.5-point favorite. Georgia Tech we thought they might be darlings after they got off to a big win against Florida State, which now doesn't look so good. I like Virginia Tech here. Carolina goes to Virginia. Virginia's playing really good football. Carolina's defense still is atrocious. A lot of rumors that Mac Brown will be on his way out. I'm buying those rumors, by the way. I like Virginia in this game. Buffalo goes to Hawaii. They wish they were going to Hawaii. They're going to Ohio. I'll take Ohio at home in this game. Charlotte and Memphis. Memphis, an 18-point favorite. Charlotte, kind of weird. You're 2-1 in conference, 3-4 overall. I don't think it's a good football team. I think Memphis wins this one. Unsure they cover that 18. Tulane at North Texas. We'll take Tulane, who I have as what. If a team overcomes Army and Navy in the American, I think it'll be Tulane. I think Notre Dame or Navy pulls out the victory in this league. Whether they get to the playoffs is going to depend on whether Boise State stumbles somewhere along the way. Arkansas will go to Mississippi State. Arkansas is better than expected, and Mississippi State is as bad or worse than expected. I think Arkansas goes on the road and maybe covers the 6.5. Georgia State will go to App State. Both teams really struggling. Take the home team, Appalachian State here. Central Michigan goes to Miami of Ohio. Again, I'll take the home team, Miami. Temple goes to East Carolina. East Carolina fired their coach this week. Temple will probably be firing their coach soon. I'll take East Carolina. Shook it up. We'll see how that works out for them. Illinois goes to Oregon. Oregon's a 21-point favorite, 21.5 points. I'm not sure they can cover this big spread. Illinois and Brent Bielema, 3-1 in the Big Ten, 6-1 overall, has played decent football. They're running to the number 1 ranked team in the country. Still unsure if it's the best team in the country. Sorry, Paul Spada. Sorry, Augustin. Just not sure. We'll find out. Love Dan Lanning. Love the way he coaches. Love the way he coaches these kids up. Still not sure 100% about this Oregon team. But Dylan Gabriel in the Heisman conversation as well. BYU goes to UCF. UCF's a 2-point favorite here. I think they're one of the bigger disappointments. I had them as an outsider potentially in the Big 12. They're 3-4, 1-3 in the Big 12. BYU has not stumbled yet. They're still 7-0, but they've stumbled a bit, and we'll see whether they can continue it. I like BYU with the points here. What do you got here? The live by the portal, die by it. Boom, that Sooners, right? I mean, look at it's a great point. The portal alone is no way to build a program. No way. Missouri travels to Alabama. This is an interesting game. Alabama's, struggled. They lost to Vandy. They had a really tough struggle against South Carolina. They did everything they could to lose that game, and then they lose to Tennessee with Tennessee with their usual second half heroics. Alabama could very well be on a 3-game losing streak. They're not. Missouri has had one. They haven't really played great the last month either. I think this is closer than a 17.5-point game. I hope this one's in a cigar box because I'm on Missouri plus 17 and a half. Northwestern goes to Iowa. Iowa's a 14-point favorite. I'll take Iowa here. Hopefully it's going to be 15-0 because they're not going to score a lot of points. Maryland goes to Minnesota. Maryland with a big win last week. Loxley looked like he might be in trouble there after a pretty fast start. Still only 1-3 in the Big Ten. Minnesota very up and down, but good team at home, and we'll play the 4 points and take them. Rice goes to UConn. I'm going to pick UConn and Jim Moore to pop out of their slumber. Wake Forest having a tough year this year. I still have got to get Larry Sorensen on the show, talk a little bit about Wake struggles, the ACC in general, and just the state of college football. Wake against Stanford. I'll take, I'm going to take Stanford in this game, getting 3 at home. Oklahoma State plays a really bad Baylor team, but this is not a good Oklahoma State team. One of the favorites to win the conference. They're 0-4 in the Big 12, 3-4 overall. Baylor's a 7-point favorite. I'm going to take the 7, though. I won't bet it, but I'll take the 7 for free. They've killed me all year. Texas Tech goes to TCU. As I said before, I like TCU in this game. I'm not sure about the 6.5. I said over in that game, but it's 66.5, so I'm not sure. Southern Miss against James Madison. James Madison's a 24-point favorite. We'll take JMU here. Eastern Michigan goes to Akron. A lot of games this weekend. We'll take Eastern Michigan in that game. We'll take Northern Illinois, who stumbled a bit in the MAC since beating Notre Dame earlier. We'll take Northern Illinois over Ball State. Bowling Green and Toledo. Again, Toledo's a really good football team. Struggled a bit so far for them. We'll take Toledo at home. Kent State. Listen, they might be worse than UMass, which is really surprising because UMass is maybe the worst team in the country. Kent State's very close to that. 0-7, 0-3. Western Michigan wins for fun. Wagner and UMass. I didn't even know Wagner had a football team. We'll take Wagner. UTSA, probably the only game you won't find on TV anywhere will be Wagner in Massachusetts. I take it back. They're on ESPN+. UTSA against Tulsa. I'm going to take Texas El Paso in this game. Tulsa's not as good as they've been in the past, and San Antonio's not as good as advertised. But I think there's some pride there. I like their coach trailer, and I think this team will start to rebound with this game. Oregon State goes to Cal. Cal's better than you think. 3-4 overall. This is a old Pac-10 rivalry. I'll take Cal, even minus a 10, I think. Texas goes to Vanderbilt. Texas is an 18.5-point favorite. I agree with Danny, I think, said earlier that they will throttle Vanderbilt this week. New Mexico will go to Colorado State. I like Colorado State here. Might even cover the 6.5. Doubt I'll get them in the cigar box, but I would take them if I could. UL Monroe to South Alabama. As I said, I'll take UL Monroe in this one. I already picked Arizona over Arizona State. Utah, very disappointing. 1-3. Cam Rising again out for the season, potentially coming back next year for an 8th season. Unbelievable. I'm going to take Utah to get the ship righted against not a good Houston team. Utah State goes to Wyoming. 2 bad football teams. Toss a coin. Take the home team, Wyoming. Troy and Arkansas State. Man, there's a lot of games. We'll start skipping through here. Penn State, Wisconsin. I took the upset here. Penn State's a 6.5-point favorite. I might bet this game. It's possible I bet this game with the 6.5 at home. LSU goes to Texas A&M. A&M a 2.5-point favorite. Another game I'm likely to be on. Maybe the over, 53.5. If I don't bet the game, I'll bet the over, 53.5. I like Texas A&M to win, though. Michigan over Michigan State. Don't waste your money. Auburn and Kentucky, nobody cares. Kentucky at home. Kansas at Kansas State. This game matters to the people in Kansas. I'm going to take Kansas State. Kansas also one of the bigger disappointments. 2-5, 1-3 in the Big 12. Lance Leopold not expecting this. Daniels, the quarterback, goes down. This team is just lost. SMU, 11-point favorite, 11.5-point favorite at Duke. I'm on Manny Diaz and the Blue Devils in this game. Give me those points. San Jose State goes to Fresno. I'll take Coach Ken getting 4.5 on the road. Cincinnati at Colorado. Colorado 5. The over-under 57. Always an interesting number in a Colorado game. I like Colorado here. Washington State goes to San Diego State. I'll take Washington State, who's playing really good football at 6-1. Won't get them anywhere because of their current conference situation. And Nevada goes to Hawaii. Two bad football teams will take the home Rainbow Warriors. What happened to football in Kentucky? Well, Bear Bryant left, and that was the end of that. Bear Bryant left. Now, Kentucky's had some up and down years. They had some good years under Rick Brooks, who was at Oregon for a long time. They've had some really good seasons under Mark Stoops, but they've been very inconsistent the last 2 years. But the 4 or 5 years before that, this team ran the ball well. They played good defense. They got good quarterback play from Will Levis, and they were a very what do I want to say? A very, they were the best of the teams that weren't the best in the SEC for 3-4 years in my mind. The last couple of years have been rough. This year, they almost knocked off Georgia. If you remember, everybody thinks Georgia's this juggernaut, but Georgia lost Alabama, who's clearly could be on a 3-game losing streak very easily right now. And they nearly lost to Kentucky at Kentucky. So Kentucky can rise to the occasion when they need to. And Mark Stoops is a really good football coach. He's had offers to leave there, and he's been true to the school. He's probably happy that John Calipari's gone to Arkansas because he had a big rivalry, and they didn't always see eye to eye on the basketball and football fronts. But, good for them. Oh, what else you guys got for me tonight before we go? Nobody bid on the whole, I was going to look at, see what we had. What did Howie Mandel. I always say that wrong. Let me look at this mailbag here a little bit. I usually have some comments. Is Sherrod Moore a victim of circumstances, having been handed the job too late to find a transfer quarterback and top coordinators? Or is he like Juwan Howard, Michigan basketball, a nice guy, Michigan man who's simply in over his head? I don't think Sherrod Moore's in over his head. I think Sherrod Moore did a really good job filling in while Jim Harbaugh was suspended last year twice. Again, he got the job kind of late. They couldn't find a quarterback, which you cannot win without a quarterback. And they lost some other talent at running back and on the offensive line. Still a decent defensive team. I think Sherrod Moore will probably win here at some point. What's this? The whole fiasco with the Texas-Georgia game and, getting the call wrong, then overturning it after bottles got thrown. How do you not throw unsportsmanlike penalty on the Texas crowd when they're throwing bottles on the field? And Kirby Smart's right. They overturned that call partly because I think they afraid that they were going to have a riot on their hands if they didn't. But it sets a really bad precedent. Just if you don't like the call, just threaten to riot and we'll overcome it. Don't do that. Penalize the home team and get them to get the crowd under control. Chris, what do you got? Would you say Notre Dame is doing just fine after their draft departures? I think Notre Dame is doing. Yes, I really do. I mean, look, I was a big booster of Marcus Freeman for a long time. I'm not back on the Marcus Freeman bandwagon until he does something like run the table here, win a game in the playoff, if not get to the Final Four. That might get me back on the Marcus Freeman bandwagon. This is a good football team, Chris. They lost some really good offensive linemen. I think they have a better quarterback. I really like Sam Hartman, but I don't think he was a good fit at Notre Dame. I like Riley Leonard a lot more, but it took these guys 3 games and a loss to Northern Illinois to figure out how to use Riley Leonard. That falls on Marcus Freeman and his offensive coordinator. Riley Leonard is a guy who uses his legs. They were trying to make him a pocket passer. He didn't move around enough. He throws on the run. He's a threat to run. I think Notre Dame's just fine. And again, they'll make the playoff. I'm pretty sure they'll make the playoff with 1 loss. But they can't stumble. They can't stumble. They got teams behind them that are playing really good football. And if they continue to do that, they could find themselves at number 13 and on the outside looking in. That's my comment, Chris. We're going to get ready to wrap it up here. Let me just see if there's one more. Are we surprised about Oklahoma? No, I said Oklahoma would be 8-4 tops. Now I'm thinking they might be 7-5. I think Venable is in over his head. I'm sorry. This team just can't get the offense figured out. The talent there last year was better than a 6-16. I think Venable better start looking over his shoulder a little bit. No, chaos scenarios. It was the worst weekend. Rutgers has got to kick off, by the way, at 11 p.m. Eastern time Friday night with that trip to Los Angeles. And Washington's got to kick off 9 a.m. Pacific time against Indiana. Another reason I like Indiana a lot. Out of the 400 teams that come out of Texas, which was your pick again with Danny against Vanderbilt? Texas Longhorns will trample Vanderbilt. Danny took them as well. He likes them to beat Vanderbilt by a ton. So do I. So with that, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. Good night. You guys have done a great job as usual. Want to thank everybody for their participation. And we will see you Friday at some point from the cruise ship, the Venezia in the New York Harbor Friday afternoon with the Major League Baseball update. We'll also see you from the middle of the Atlantic or the Caribbean, depending on how far we get by Sunday morning with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. And we'll try to make our appearances on Mac and Jack on Friday and the Big Football Show on Sunday as well. See you guys later. Great show. Thanks. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. Enjoy your football weekend.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.